Hey everyone. So the Senate Democrats blocked the National Defense Authorization Act from moving forward. The vote was 50 to 46 in favor of advancing the bill, but because it requires 60 votes, it failed. And this matters. So the NDAA is normally treated as one of those bills that simply has to pass. Congress might fight around the edges, lawmakers might complain about the individual provisions, but ultimately the defense authorization bill moves forward every single year. This time, Democrats said no. So they objected to the enormous Pentagon spending level. They objected to Trump attempting to continue an unauthorized war with Iran. And they objected to provisions that would further intertwine the American and Israeli military and intelligence systems. And that doesn't mean the bill is dead forever. It almost certainly will return. Negotiations will continue, provisions may change, and another vote will probably happen. But for the moment, Democrats use their power they have and refuse to rubber stamp it. I want to thank Bernie Sanders, Chris Van Hollen, and the other senators who really stood up, and they deserve credit for that. And I want to be precise about why this is important. So there's a difference between maintaining a diplomatic or military relationship with another country and creating systems of cooperation so deeply embedded that a future American government could no longer meaningfully change the relationship. No foreign government, Israel or anyone else, should have such extensive access to American intelligence and military infrastructure that the United States loses the practical ability to establish its own independent foreign policy. And that's not isolationism, that's sovereignty. The United States should be able to determine where our military goes, what wars we participate in, what intelligence we share, and how American taxpayer dollars are used based on the interests of the American people. And that brings me to Iran. So, Donald Trump's handling of Iran and the Strait of Hormuz has been almost impossible to follow because his position changes by the hour. So, he announced that the US would reimpose a blockade on Iranian ports. He threatened to charge ships an extraordinary fee, something like 20% of the value of their cargo, for American protection while traveling through the strait. Then, after leaders throughout the region pushed back and the practical problems became obvious, Trump abandoned the whole proposed fee. Think about what we're watching. So, we have the President of the United States announcing a major international policy involving one of the most strategically important shipping routes in the world. That policy affects oil prices, fertilizer prices, global trade, and honestly, the possibility of a wider war. Then, within roughly a day, he reverses himself. That isn't strategic unpredictability, that's instability. Trump entered this confrontation without an achievable endgame. Iran responded in precisely the way that American intelligence and foreign policy experts have warned about since the beginning. They're using its geographic positioning around the Strait of Hormuz to exert leverage over the entire global economy. Now, Trump has very limited options. Escalation could require a much larger, much more dangerous military commitment. That's one. Backing down makes him look weak. Continuing without congressional authorization creates a constitutional crisis. So his administration has tried to claim that each new round of military action begins a brand new 60-day clock under the War Powers Resolution. That cannot become the standard. A president cannot evade Congress like this. A president cannot evade Congress indefinitely by announcing that every escalation is technically a new conflict. The Constitution gives Congress the authority to decide whether the U.S. goes to war. The War Powers Resolution was not designed to let presidents conduct endless military campaigns by repeatedly resetting a timer. And that's another reason why this Senate vote matters so much. So Congress is beginning, at least in this instance, to assert that it still has a role. The same political shift is becoming visible inside the House as well. So Representative Thomas Massie introduced an amendment that would have eliminated approximately 3.3 billion in annual American military assistance to Israel. That amendment failed, but 103 Democrats voted for it. That would have been nearly unimaginable only a few years ago. Hakeem Jeffries opposed the amendment, arguing that it was overly broad, but when more than 100 members of your own caucus vote to end military assistance, leadership cannot just dismiss that as a fringe position. The Democratic electorate is changing. The images that we're seeing of these endless wars is starting to really take front and center, and Democratic leaders can either recognize that shift or continue placing themselves in direct conflict with a really growing portion of their own voters. And this isn't about demanding that every Democrat agree on every detail of foreign policy. But a political coalition can contain disagreements over spending levels or diplomatic strategy or even sanctions or conditions placed on military assistance. But there has to be a moral floor. American weapons should not be provided without meaningful conditions. There should be transparency, there should be accountability. American taxpayers should not be forced to finance conduct that we believe violate international law and basic human rights. And elected leaders should not treat public office as something that they can just do whatever they want with. We really need to hold our leaders accountable, and the pressure's not fading, it's growing. So continue to follow me. Let's break down American stories as they happen.